Most people die in ways we understand: old age, sickness, accidents. But sometimes death happens in ways that feel unreal. In this video, we'll look at 5 real cases where normal people died in the most disturbing and unexpected ways. These aren't stories from horror movies, they really happened. And they show how quickly normal life can turn into something terrifying. It was December 2002 in New York City. Sean Doyle, a bartender, was out for a night of drinks with his friend Michael Wright and Wright's girlfriend. What started as a casual evening quickly took a dark turn. As the night went on, Michael became convinced that Sean was flirting with his girlfriend. Whether fueled by alcohol or deep-seated jealousy, his frustration grew into something far worse. At some point, the argument escalated into a physical fight. Witnesses recalled Sean shouting, "No, don't break my legs," before things spiraled beyond control. In a fit of rage, Michael did something unthinkable. He shoved Sean into an open manhole on the street. The drop was about 18 feet, but the real danger wasn't the fall itself. Below was a flooded steam tunnel filled with scalding water that had reached deadly temperatures. A broken steam main had turned the space beneath the city streets into a boiling death trap. What makes this even more horrifying is that Sean didn't die immediately. He survived the fall and was still standing when emergency crews arrived. From below, his screams echoed up the tunnel as he begged for help, but no one could reach him. The heat inside was unbearable. Firefighters and paramedics tried everything, but the steam was too intense. The temperature in the tunnel exceeded 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and the water was hot enough to inflict extreme burns within seconds. No one could go down without risking their own life. For 4 agonizing hours, Sean remained trapped. He was fully conscious, feeling the intense heat as the boiling water slowly consumed him. When his body was finally recovered, forensic experts discovered that the temperature readings taken from his remains had reached 125 degrees Fahrenheit. But this was only as high as the measuring device could go. In reality, it was likely much hotter. Dr. Judy Melinek, the forensic pathologist who examined Sean's remains, described his injuries in haunting detail. His skin had peeled away, and his internal organs were damaged beyond recognition from the extreme heat. Despite the horrific burns, there were no broken bones or major head trauma. This meant Sean had been fully aware of what was happening to him as he suffered. Dr. Melinek later admitted that this case was the one that haunted her the most. When people asked her about the worst way a person could go, she would often reply, "You don't want to know." But when pressed, she would describe Sean's final moments, the pain, the heat, and the helplessness he must have felt. The emotional weight of his suffering is almost impossible to comprehend. This wasn't just an accident or an act of reckless violence. It was a drawn-out, horrifying ordeal that left a lasting mark on everyone who heard about it. Michael Wright was later arrested and charged. While his girlfriend claimed the situation got out of control, the court saw it differently. Throwing someone into a steam-filled tunnel wasn't an accident. It was an intentional act that ended in an unimaginable way. New York City is no stranger to tragedy, but Sean Doyle's death remains one of the most disturbing in recent history. It wasn't just the violence of the attack that shocked people. It was the suffering that followed. His story is a chilling example of how quickly an argument can escalate, and how some dangers hidden beneath the surface can be far worse than anyone realizes. Michael Wright faced legal consequences, but nothing could undo what had happened. The boiling steam, the unanswered screams, and the hours of agony that Sean endured are now a dark part of the city's history. And for those who knew him, the question remains, how could something like this be allowed to happen? It was December 22, 2024 in Brooklyn, New York. At the Coney Island Stillwell Avenue station, a 57-year-old woman named Debrina Kawam was asleep on a subway train. The station was quiet, the train sitting idle. But what happened next would shock the city and make national headlines. Debrina had once been full of life. In her high school years in Little Falls, New Jersey, she was a cheerleader and waitress, known for her energy and charisma. She was voted most punk and had a $1 million smile. But as time passed, life took a different turn. She struggled with homelessness and alcohol addiction, living in shelters across New York City. Despite this, people still remembered her. One of them was Mark Montaigne, a former high school friend. He recalled her as the life of the party, someone who was always smiling. He never imagined that years later she would become the victim of such a horrifying crime. That morning, Debrina was alone, dozing off on the subway. At 7:30 a.m., a man approached her. He was later identified as 33-year-old Sebastian Zapita Khalil, an undocumented immigrant from Guatemala. He had previously been deported in 2018 but had managed to return to the U.S. Without warning, Zapita Khalil pulled out a lighter and set Debrina's clothing on fire. The flames spread quickly, engulfing her as she slept. The scene was horrifying. A bystander caught it on video. Zapita Khalil calmly walked away and sat on a bench watching as she burned. Witnesses were frozen in shock. Security footage later showed police arriving, but one officer simply walked past Debrina without helping. This response would spark outrage when the video surfaced. An MTA worker finally grabbed a fire extinguisher and put out the flames, but it was too late. Debrina was pronounced dead at 7:48 a.m. from severe burns and smoke inhalation. For over a week, authorities struggled to identify her. They used advanced fingerprinting techniques and on December 31st, 2024, her identity was finally confirmed. The news hit hard, not just because of how she died, but because of the person she had once been. Debrina had dreams. She had once wanted to be a flight attendant. She had a magnetic personality, charming customers as a waitress at Perkins Pancake House. Even in tough times, she stayed connected to her past. A former neighbor recalled seeing her outside her mother's house, unaware that her mom had moved. Her tragic death shocked old friends and sparked debates about public safety and immigration policies. Many believed this crime could have been prevented. Zapita Khalil was arrested the same day after students recognized him from the video and tipped off the police. He was found with a lighter in his pocket. When questioned, he claimed he had no memory of what happened, saying he had been drinking. Whether this was true or an excuse remains unclear. He was charged with first-degree and second-degree murder as well as arson. If convicted, he could face life in prison without parole. Beyond the legal case, Debrina's death raised painful questions. How had she ended up in such a vulnerable position? Her friends and family were left wondering how someone so full of life had fallen through the cracks. It also highlighted the dangers faced by people experiencing homelessness. They are often at risk of violence, and Debrina's case was a tragic example of that reality. As for Zapita Khalil, his trial will determine his fate, but the damage has already been done. Those who knew Debrina will remember her not for how she died, but for who she was, a bright, energetic woman whose life took a tragic turn. Her story is heartbreaking. It's not just about a horrific crime. It's about a person who was once loved, once full of promise, and who, in the end, was left unprotected in a world that had forgotten her. It was February 28, 1989, in Miyakoji Village, a quiet rural area in Japan's Fukushima prefecture. That evening, a 23-year-old elementary school teacher had just finished work and returned to her dormitory, a small, simple room in a staff housing complex. The dormitory was in a remote area, and each room had a squat toilet connected to a small septic tank. It wasn't modern, but it was functional. As the teacher went to use the toilet, something unusual caught her eye. Inside the toilet opening, she noticed a shoe. Confused, she looked closer and saw something far worse, a human leg. Horrified, she ran out of the room and called for help. When police arrived, they found a body wedged inside the septic tank's narrow pipe. The opening inside the toilet was only about 8 inches wide, while the tank's pipe was 14 inches across. The body was positioned in a disturbing way, head tilted up toward the toilet opening, as if looking through it. The victim was identified as 26-year-old Naoyuki Kano, a sales manager for a company that worked with nuclear power plants in the region. Well known in the village, he was regarded as a friendly and responsible man. He had been missing for several days before his body was discovered. The police concluded that Naoyuki had passed away from hypothermia. There were no signs of injury or struggle. He was found shirtless, clutching a neatly folded shirt to his chest, and barefoot. The theory was that he had crawled into the septic tank to spy on women using the toilet, had become trapped, and succumbed to the cold. But this explanation didn't sit well with many people. Those who knew Naoyuki found it hard to believe that he would do something like that. He had no history of such behavior, and the idea that he could squeeze into such a tight space seemed unlikely. The structure of the septic system itself raised even more questions. The U-shaped pipe had one opening outside for waste removal and the other inside the toilet. The toilet opening was far too small for an adult to fit through. Even the outdoor opening, though slightly wider, would have been an incredibly tight squeeze. How could he have ended up inside in that position on his own? There were other strange details as well. His shoes were found in 2 different places, one inside the septic tank near his head, and the other far away on a riverbank. His car was parked near the dormitory, unlocked with the key still in the ignition, suggesting he hadn't planned to be gone for long. Adding to the mystery, Naoyuki had recently been involved in a political campaign for a local village chief. The election had created tension, particularly among supporters of the nearby nuclear power plant. Some wondered if his death was connected to these disputes. A month before his disappearance, an incident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant led to a temporary reactor shutdown. Shortly afterward, the person responsible for the reactor took his own life. Some speculated there might be a connection between these events and Naoyuki's fate. Suspicion also surrounded the teacher who found the body. How did she notice the shoe in such poor lighting, and why did she lift the septic tank lid herself before authorities arrived? Some found her actions unusual, though there was no direct evidence linking her to Naoyuki's death. She had known him before and even helped him with a separate issue involving phone harassment, but their relationship appeared to be purely platonic. Despite these unanswered questions, the police ruled Naoyuki's death an accident. They believed he had entered the septic tank on his own and died from the freezing temperatures. The case was closed. However, the villagers weren't satisfied. They pushed for further investigation, but no new evidence emerged. Over time, the case faded into local lore, an eerie, unsolved mystery that left many uneasy. Decades later, the internet revived interest in the story. It spread across forums, YouTube, and social media, capturing the attention of those fascinated by bizarre and unexplained cases. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to Naoyuki Kano. Was it a tragic accident? Or was there something more sinister at play? The truth remains buried. leaving only speculation and lingering questions. It was a quiet Monday in 2023 in Harlan, Kentucky. Michael Wayne Alford, 59, was outside his home tending to a few tasks. He was moving an old bag of potting soil, unaware that inside it was a hidden wasp nest. As soon as he disturbed it, the wasps swarmed aggressively. Within moments, Michael was stung multiple times. The venom spread quickly through his body, making it difficult for him to breathe. His daughter, Marlana Ledford, heard the commotion and rushed to his side. Realizing the severity of the situation, she immediately began CPR. Shortly after, Michael's son, Mitch, arrived and joined her efforts, desperately trying to keep their father alive. Despite their efforts, the wasps continued to attack and Michael's condition worsened. Knowing time was running out, the family called 911. Paramedics arrived quickly and took over the life-saving efforts. But the venom had already taken a serious toll. Michael's breathing became weaker and he eventually lost consciousness. He was rushed to Harlan ARH Hospital, but just under 2 hours after the attack, he was pronounced dead at 5:50 p.m. The coroner later confirmed that respiratory failure caused by the stings had taken his life. It was a sudden and devastating accident. Michael's family was in shock. His son, Mitch, later shared how difficult the loss had been. "It's a big burden on us, my mom and the whole family," he said in an interview. Michael was more than just a father. He was a devoted grandfather, a man who loved simple pleasures like four-wheeling, playing the piano, and collecting knives. He was also deeply rooted in his faith, known for his humble and reserved nature. His passing left a deep void in his family. His wife of 41 years, Chichi Margaline Margot Hughes Alford, was left without her lifelong partner. Their 3 children and 11 grandchildren were left grieving a sudden and tragic loss. Michael had pre-existing health conditions, including a heart condition, which may have made the reaction to the venom even worse. Still, no one could have expected that something as routine as moving a bag of soil would lead to such a tragedy. While it's rare, cases like Michael's do happen. Between 2011 and 2021, there were 788 reported deaths from bee, wasp, and hornet stings in the U.S., averaging around 72 per year. Most people recover from stings, but for those with allergies or underlying health issues, the effects can be deadly. Wasps and hornets in particular are more aggressive than bees and will attack in large numbers if they feel threatened. Statistics show that men are more likely to die from insect stings than women. The most common cause of death is respiratory failure, which happens when the venom triggers severe swelling, making it impossible to breathe. Once this reaction starts, it can become life-threatening within minutes. Experts advise that if you encounter an aggressive swarm, the best thing to do is move away quickly and seek shelter. Swatting at the insects or staying in the area can make them more aggressive. The University of Arizona's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences warns that disturbing a nest, even unintentionally, can lead to serious consequences, as seen in Michael's case. In the aftermath of his passing, Michael's family struggled with both grief and financial burdens. His daughter, Marlana, started a GoFundMe to help cover funeral expenses. Since Michael didn't have life insurance, the family was left to manage the costs on their own. By Thursday, donations had reached just over half of their goal, offering some relief in an otherwise painful time. The funeral was scheduled at Evart's funeral home, where family and friends would say their final goodbyes. As they prepared for the service, they were left with the heartbreaking reality of losing someone they loved in such an unexpected way. Michael's passing is a reminder that danger can come from the most unexpected places. A simple act like moving a bag of soil led to an irreversible tragedy. For those who live in areas where wasps and other insects are common, awareness and caution can make all the difference. For Michael's family, no amount of warning could have prepared them for this loss. They are now left to grieve the man who meant so much to them, a father, husband, and grandfather taken too soon by an accident no one saw coming. It was May 21, 2023, when 20-year-old Zachary Porter set off on an adventure in Alaska with his friends. A sophomore studying economics at Washington University in St. Louis, Zachary had a passion for travel in the outdoors. He and 3 friends had arrived in Alaska to explore before summer activities began. That afternoon, they found themselves walking along the Turnagain Arm mudflats near Hope, a small community about 90 minutes south of Anchorage. Turnagain Arm is known for its dramatic tides and dangerous mudflats. The flats may appear solid at low tide, but the fine silt can quickly trap anyone who steps on it, creating a quicksand-like effect. Unfortunately, Zachary would soon learn just how dangerous this terrain could be. As the group walked, Zachary suddenly became stuck. At first it seemed like a minor issue, but the more he tried to move, the deeper he sank. His friends rushed to help, but their efforts only made things worse. Realizing they couldn't free him, one of them called 911 at 5:45 p.m. Time was not on their side. The tide in Turnagain Arm is one of the fastest rising in the world, and water was already creeping in. Fire departments from Girdwood and Hope Sunrise were dispatched, but they were still an hour away. Zachary's friends could do nothing but watch helplessly as the water continued to rise. Rescue teams arrived as quickly as they could, using specialized equipment to try to free him. However, the incoming tide had softened the silt, making extraction nearly impossible. By 6:43 p.m., Zachary was completely submerged. Despite their best efforts, rescuers couldn't reach him in time. At 7 p.m., emergency crews accessed the area where he had been trapped, but it was too late. The operation shifted from a rescue to a recovery mission. The next morning, on May 22nd, his body was recovered. Zachary's death devastated his family, friends, and community. He was known for his adventurous spirit and love for the outdoors. His father, Todd Porter, recalled how family hikes and getting lost in nature had been some of Zachary's favorite experiences. His mother, Susan Ryder, described him as someone who was on his way to becoming an incredible adult with dreams of traveling and experiencing the world. His sister Elizabeth spoke of his kindness, calling him compassionate, hardworking, and intelligent. He had been a mentor to young baseball players and sailing students, always leading by example. His former baseball coach, Ray Del Fava, described him as a quiet leader, someone who inspired others both on and off the field. Zachary had a deep love for sailing and the outdoors. His mother had always supported his passion, and he had dreams of becoming a professional sailor. She shared how he was determined to make a difference in the world, both through his adventurous pursuits and his kindness toward others. The Turnagain Arm mudflats have claimed lives before. The last known fatal incident was nearly a decade earlier. The area is deceptive. At low tide, it looks like solid ground, but the silt beneath acts like quicksand. Once someone gets stuck, escaping without help is nearly impossible. When the tide rises, the situation quickly becomes life-threatening. Christy Peterson, an EMT and administrator with the Hope Sunrise Volunteer Fire Department, has seen firsthand how dangerous the flats can be. She explained that many people ignore the warning signs, thinking they can walk across safely. But once trapped, time is limited. She stressed the importance of calling 911 immediately if someone gets stuck. Every second counts. Zachary's family was left to grieve the unimaginable loss of their son and brother. They remembered him not only for his adventurous nature, but also for his generosity and kindness. He had always wanted to make a positive impact, whether through mentoring others or simply being there for those who needed him. In the wake of his passing, his family decided to channel their grief into something meaningful. They planned to start a foundation in his name, one that would give underprivileged children opportunities to explore the outdoors. Through this effort, they hoped to honor Zachary's love for nature, while helping others experience the same joy he found in it. Zachary's story is a sobering example of how unpredictable nature can be. The Turnagain Arm mudflats may seem peaceful, but they hold hidden dangers. His family hopes that his legacy will not only inspire others to explore the outdoors, but also remind them to respect the forces of nature. Though his life was cut short, Zachary Porter's adventurous spirit and kindness will not be forgotten. His loved ones are determined to keep his memory alive, ensuring that others continue to explore the world, just as he always dreamed of doing.